Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the interactive session on the theme Poet as a Public Intellectual to be delivered by a guest speaker, Ms. Jhilam Chattaraj, ma'am. Ms. Jhilam is an academic and poet based in Hyderabad, India. She has authored the books titled Noise Cancellation, Corporate Fiction, Popular Culture, and The New Writers and When Lovers Leave and Poetry Stays. Her works have been published at Colorado Review, World Literature Today Room, Porridge, Not Very Quiet, Queen Mob's Tea House, and Asian Cha, among others. She is the recipient of the CTI Excellence Award in Literature and Soft Skills Development 2019 from the Council for Transforming India and the Department of Language and Culture, Government of Telangana, India. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Jhilam ma'am to deliver the session. Ma'am, we have 2 hours for the session and we can divide the session into two parts. So in the first part, we can have the talk by you. And in the second part, we can make the session more interactive. So I request all our participants to engage directly with you by asking questions. You can also raise demands for clarification and feel free to share your insights and reflections on the session. Before we move ahead, I would also request our participants to make the session more lively by keeping your camera switched on throughout the session. Ma'am, now I hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to address all of you today as a part of your course on dialogue studies. I thank Mr. Behzad Fatimi for giving me the opportunity today to interact with you all. Well, my approach will be a little different. It won't be a theory talk, because I'm from literature background and I'm a poet myself. So I will be lacing this talk with a lot of poetry and creative thinking. What I thought would be useful for you at this point of time regarding dialogue studies, I was thinking that what could poets do to contribute towards dialogue studies? And please to pardon me, my understanding of dialogue studies is not as in-depth as you all have. So if I make any a mistake, please do correct me. My whole idea today is to discuss with you the role of a poet as a public intellectual. And I have a PPT. If anyone could share that, that would be useful. Also, you can keep your cameras on, off, but yeah, I would like to have interaction as I talk, because that's how I prefer, rather than dividing my talk and my interaction into two separate parts. So as I speak to you, as I read poetry, I would like you all to respond. So we have 14 participants here. Hello, everyone. Hi, could you just get to know a little bit? I mean, could you just put a hi, hello, anything in the chat box? It would be really nice. I mean, because, in Zoom, I mean, you don't know each other, whereas in reality, you're somebody. But in Zoom, we're all like, matrix. Yes, hi, hello, Akanksha, Imam Hussain, Kulsum. Yes, hi. Hi, yes, okay. All
Hi,
right.
you look so pretty at the picture.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
I like it.
Thank you. I hope you enjoy my talk as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I know where are you joining from, madam? Are you?
Hi, I am Nur Hassan Muhammad. I'm from northern Iraq, Sulaimania.
Okay.
I am working at Dialogue and Culture Organization.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
It's
so
nice
I hope
to see you.
Thank you. Same here. It's always nice to interact with people of different cultures and backgrounds and countries. So I'll proceed with my talk. We have the next slide. Yes. Thank you. So my whole idea, as I told you, is to see the role of poets. Now, could you, before I proceed, could you let me know about any poet that you know? Are you familiar with poetry at all? Or in which level are you? You can speak up, or you can put it in the chat box. You can put a name of a poet you remember. Yes, anyone? Okay, Reshmi, yes. Reshmi Chakravarti says, I enjoy poetry. Gulzar, okay, good, good. Could I have a few more names? Okay. Safia Alehu, okay. She's from Rumi, all right. Good, good. So how do you see these poets? What is your perception of them? Anyone would like to share with me? How do you see a poet? When you think of a poet, what comes to your mind? Yes, Kamala Das. Yes, Yunus Emre. Oh yeah, lovely, lovely Turkish poet. Anyone would like to speak? Amrita Pritham. When you think of a poet, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? How do you see them? Like, oh yes, he's a poet. I mean, do you see them as intellectuals, or do you see them as artists, or people who live in isolation and create poetry, romantics, people away from reality? How do you see them? A poet is a mirror. Kulsum says a poet is a mirror to the world outside and the world within. Yes, lovely. Creative expression of living and life. Good, very good. Yes, yes. Just like a painter paints. Yes, yes, yes. Anybody else? Expressing the unsaid. Yes, that's true. Yes. Yes, anyone else would like to put in something? Expressing the unsaid. Yes. So, yes. So I will be, introducing you to the world of poetry as the world of intellectuals. How, whatever you have said right now, expressing creativity. So, usually poetry is understood as something that is distant, something that is away from reality. Poets are looked up as, nightingales in a beautiful forest, singing in their own world, which is, yes, when nothing is possible, poetry is. Yes, very good. Yes, so we see poetry as something that is very rare for, right? But today what we will try to do is that, I will ease it out for you and show that how can poets also help create dialogue if they are also considered within the fields of public intellectuals. Now, public intellectual, the idea of who is a public intellectual, at a very basic level, one might consider that, okay, I mean, if you talk, if you're an activist like that, you can become. So my question to you right now is that who do you expressing what happened at the happiest, correct, and saddest times. Yes, very good, very good. So my question to you right now is, who do you think is a public intellectual? Is the person with scholarship a public intellectual? Is someone who is into activism a public intellectual? Is someone who is into creative writing a public intellectual? Is someone who is creating a lot of discomfort in society through their writing? Is that person an intellectual? Or someone who's constantly critiquing authority is an intellectual, a public intellectual? Or is it that all of them together? Who would you say that, yeah, this person is a public intellectual? Do you have someone in mind? Then I'll go forward with
Excuse
Edward
me,
Said's
ma'am.
idea. Yes.
I just wanted to inform you that your camera is turned off.
Okay.
Yes, now we can see you.
Okay. All right. No, I thought, okay, maybe it just happened. Thank you for letting me know. Yes. So amalgamation. Reshmi says amalgamation. Good. So you consider that scholarship, activism, writing, creating discomfort, critiquing authority, everything together comes as the role of a public intellectual. Okay, good, Reshmi. Anybody else would like to say something? Engaged, Mona Lisa says engaged in the activities in society and has dissociated view. Very good. Dissociated view from towards the society from outside. Yes, good. Anybody else? Anybody else has anything to say? Anybody else? Who do you think? You have a role model? Do you have a role model? You think that so and so, this person is an intellectual who could contribute in the field of in creating dialogue across nations and cultures? Do you have anyone you look up to? Sashi Tharoor or anyone? I mean, Ramachandra. I think he's a historian. He's an historian. So, anyone, if you have anybody in mind on your mind, you can just share. So this is how my talk is going to be. I'm going to interact throughout. Okay, so I'm going to involve you in, because I believe learning is a collaborative process, and we can do a lot together rather than being isolated. Whether it's 2 hours, 3 hours, even if it's for 15 minutes, it's a process we do together at the same point of time. Yes, Reshmi has given us quite a few good names. Yes, Guha could be. Sashi Tharoor is a little more than a public intellectual. Yes, of course, he has taken up different roles. Right. So the concept, of public intellectual actually was initially, where in the beginning, Arundhati Roy. Yes, very good example. So I'll just go to the concept of the public intellectual was very early on. It was introduced by actually American poet, writer Ralph Waldo Emerson. Are you familiar with Emerson? Anybody? I mean, if you've heard the name somewhere, the transcendentalism, anything. If you haven't, it is fine. So Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, if you want to make like few notes, you can just do that as well. Ralph, 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 Waldo, Waldo, Waldo Emerson, Emerson, Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson, his idea of intellectual was given in the essay called The American Scholar. The American Scholar. The American, I'll just type it in the chat box. If you want to look up, you can. Okay. The American Scholar, where he says, according to Emerson, an intellectual is basically a preserver of society. Preserver, sound like we have gods who destroy, who create, who preserve. So Emerson sees the intellectual as someone who is a whole, who is a thinking individual, who is one man having many aspects, but everything is so well aligned in him, okay, that he himself becomes a symbol of the preservation of society. All right. If you don't mind, I'll just read this portion here where he says that Emerson's intellectual while enriched by the past, should not be bound by books. His most important activity is action. Inaction is cowardice. So for an intellectual to do nothing is not going to work here. Inaction is cowardice. Okay. Emerson's intellectual preserves great ideas of the past, communicates them, and creates new ideas. He is the world's eye. So an intellectual is a person through which the society will see. Okay. He's the world's eye. And he communicates his ideas to the world and not just to fellow intellectuals. And finally, Emerson's intellectual does all these things not out of obligation to the society, but out of obligation to himself. Public action is part of being one man, whole person. I think it's a very beautiful definition of who exactly should be an intellectual. So first is the intellectual is a whole person. Okay. The intellectual, secondly, Emerson's intellectual is not someone who is just restricted by his knowledge of books, right? And thirdly, Emerson's intellectual is someone who is constantly in action. Most of us are armchair activists. Something happens and we go to Twitter. The first thing like, oh, I got a tweet, right? We go to social media, right? We go to Instagram and or wherever it is, or WhatsApp status. Okay, why is this happening? We must protest. We must do that. But how many of us are actually out there on the street, right? How many of us are actually able to write a book and be there at the street? So it's very easy to be armchair activists, and we call ourselves as intellectuals. I mean, especially in the time that we now live in, it's very easy to get a perception of oneself as an intellectual if you just tweet intellectual things. If you tweet, you retweet, you post some pictures, and you become that, right? Of being on the street. Yes, well, I'm just saying, yes, we could have a discussion later on. That I'm very happy you came up with that. So, but Emerson's idea is that someone who is constantly doing things and not just in isolation. And third, the fourth point that he says is that he should be the eye of the world. All of these ideas that I'm giving you right now, I can just make like small notes. When we actually go to the poems, you can just correlate and tell me if they are actually working out or they're not working out. All right. And also the last thing that he says, that the intellectual is not out there because he or she believes that they are obliged to do it for society. First, it is because you're obliged to your own self. Then it comes that you decide that, yes, I'm a part of society and therefore my action goes public. This is Emerson's idea of intellectual as a preserver. I have just not mentioned his name here. Another definition of intellectual is offered by, very interesting definition is offered by Edward Said. Edward Said's idea of an intellectual is someone who is political. Political means in the sense who is constantly able to question ideas of the government, ideas of policies, someone who has an opinion. Someone who has an opinion, right? That is Said's idea of an intellectual. Different people have different ideas. Yes, Reshmi has something very interesting to say. I disagree with the proposition of being on the street. I mean, being on the street doesn't qualify one being contributed to an extended intellectual idea. Well, yes, it's your point of view, Reshmi. We'll definitely have an talk on. We'll definitely have an extended interaction on that. Well, street by mean, I don't mean exactly the street, but being physically out there. And yeah, it is true. It's not that you have to do both. You can't just be out there and saying things and get featured in the newspaper and burn effigies and that's the end of it. No, you have to do both. You have to be intellectually active and you have to be physically present too. These are not what I have said. These are what we are gathering ideas. So we can simply we can just try and understand them. If you may disagree, you may agree, that's completely your point of view. And it's good we have different and varied ideas. So Edward Said's, idea of intellectual, public intellectual was sort of, it was popularized especially in his lecture called The Representations of the Intellectual. And this lecture was delivered as the Reith Lecture 1993. All right. I'll just put it here in the chat box if you want to know. Representation of the intellectual. Okay, this is the name of the talk and it was given in the year 1993. At Reith, R-E-I-T-H, Reith Lecture. This, what he talks about is that, according to Said, an intellectual's mission in life is to advance human freedom and knowledge. So Said has a more, very purposeful idea of the intellectual. Okay, that means we have to advance human freedom and knowledge. This means that often we have to stand out of society and we have to question institutions, okay? And we have to actively disturb the status quo of the society. Whenever we are, at the same time, Sayed's intellectual is also a part of society and should address his concerns to the wide public as much as possible. Sayed's intellectual is constantly balancing the private and the public. Okay. His or her private and personal commitment to ideal provides necessary force. So Sayed sees that the intellectual is someone who is constantly able to identify himself or herself outside the society, and also and question and come inside the society, right? So if Emerson's intellectual is a preserver, Sayed's intellectual is someone who's curious. He is a seeker. Okay, he is constantly seeking for answers in a very wider sense. Next, we have Romila Thakur's idea. Anybody who would who's introduced? I mean, could you guess what could be her idea of a public intellectual? I mean, if you're familiar, it's not that you have to know a lot about her. If you're familiar with her works, and if you know a bit about her, could anyone just suggest me what do you think would be her idea? Anybody in the chat box, anyone you could answer, or you could unmute yourself. That is also fine. No? So I'll just, sort of, if you see in the links that I've sent, there's quite a lot of material there. But Thakur's idea of a public intellectual is, again, someone who's willing to question and who's willing to dissent, who's willing to take the society forward through dissent. Dissent is the way in which they go. Okay, and of course, she's very concerned about how dissenters, whether political, cultural, literary, have been treated by governments over time, right? And we have a term in today's world which I want to refer right now. What people, whenever you ask a question, there's a particular term that is being used. So we know that. But she harps on that. So intellectual should be someone who's willing to not only question, as Sayed said, but to go to the level of you should bring down the structures of oppression. Your dissent, your questions, your passion should be so strong that you're willing to bring it down. Okay, so these are the few ideas of the public intellectual, and you can take up these ideas and see who are the people who would fit into these, descriptions, and how they could take up the dialogues between cultures and societies in future. I have given you, just a very rough idea. This is a huge domain, the idea of the public intellectual. It's a domain in itself. There are many points of view. There are many criticisms. I mean, it's good. It's an active field of, varied ideas. So if you're more interested, you can take it up. I've just given you a very basic, kind of introduction. So this is in no way I can say a wholesome understanding of the idea. This is just something to, kind of enrich or add to your understanding. Shall we have the next slide? Yes. So, and just keeping these few points in the background, I would now like to come to the idea of the role of poets in a society. Many of you have named a few poets: Rumi, Gulzar, Kamala Das, and as I said, from the popular perception of poets or poetry or literature. Generally, of course, they're produced in a bit of an isolation. It requires a bit of a monk-like devotion, right? But even though poets, some of them are accused of writing from ivory towers, even if they're writing from ivory towers, are they trying to really connect to society at large? And I've just given a few pointers here on poets and writers. And we live in a time where you see poets and writers are being, constantly questioned. Their events are being cancelled, or they're being put into jail. I mean, for various reasons. It's a difficult time that we are living in, right? So poets were, as P.B. Shelley called them, they are the unacknowledged legislators of the world, and we have to see them as barometers of culture and society. Poets are holding on to their kind of measuring, and as well as they're kind of indicating that what kind of culture and society we live in is represented by the kind of poetry is being produced by that nation at that point of time, right? And they're representative agents of the contemporary lives, and they're chroniclers, they're observers, they're commentators. I'm just kind of expanding the whole idea before we move ahead. I've given you some poems to read. Maya Angelou's, I think can we have the next slide? I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And also, yeah, here are a few of the poems that I thought, also, okay, just a second. All right. Is there a slide after this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even I deliver several lectures, but I still make these errors. Nothing is error proof. Please pardon me. Well, yeah. So here are some of the poems that I thought are intellectually stirring. W.H. Auden's The Unknown Citizen. Anybody who's familiar, just if you're familiar with any of these poets or their names, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Yeah. Anybody? Okay. W.H. Auden's The Unknown Citizen. Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The Unknown Citizen talks about the ordinariness of a man's life in America in the 60s. And it questions that. Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. If you're familiar, anyone familiar with Maya Angelou? Anybody here? Any guesses? Any guesses? Yes. Yes, Mona Lisa. Anything you know? You can unmute and speak, please. You don't have to be so. This classroom is yours. I mean, we are here for interaction. You can unmute and speak. I'd love to hear you. I mean, yeah, you don't have to be so rigid. If you want to share something, please. Yes, anybody? Maya Angelou. She's an African American writer, and she of course this poem. Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So Maya Angelou is basically a very powerful voice she has, and she was one of the revolutionary ways in which women came into the power play of the 60s and the 70s. That is the time that she wrote. And I Know Why the Bird Cage Sings is basically an autobiographical writing, which has the poem as an overview of what she writes. So it's like a 7-volume series, if I remember correctly. And basically, it talks about character, it talks about love, it talks about racism, it talks about pain, trauma. That is the kind of um, rough way in which we can describe it. So I've not read all the volumes, but a little bit. But it's very powerful because she believed that each and every person had the power within to be who we want to be. And there's a beautiful quote I'm reading that she says, which I really love, is we don't even know what is the legacy that we are bringing. It is already started. Every person that you touch is a new legacy, which is going to just have a rippling effect. I'm forgetting the exact quote, but this is exactly what she wanted to portray through through this poem. So at that time, it was more about the racism which was prevalent, and especially the kind of suppression that women face, uh, objectification of the women as part of the society in a different way. So that is what is my feeling. So even though you're caged, um, you still have to perform, and you may not like the way, but it is not freedom. So the golden cage actually is again a cage. It doesn't matter if it is made of gold. So that is the kind of yeah, just to share a few views. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your very in detailed response, and this is what I even look forward to. To break the familiar pattern of a classroom. Yeah, this is also a way of questioning the way we teach and the way we interact. And I would love to kind of hear from all of you in between. That would be great. Yes. So here we learned a little bit about Maya Angelou. Anybody else? W.B. Yeats's The Second Coming. Anyone is familiar? The Second Coming, it's an alarming poem. It's a beautiful poem with immense energy and mythological drama, where he talks about the condition of the world after the world wars and how spiritually disconnected people have become. Similarly, I'll just move on to T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, which again talks about it's a poem that is divided in parts, and it's rich with allusions. And once again, it critiques human nature post-World War. We have Indian poets as A.K. Ramanujan, Kamala Das. I'm so happy one of you mentioned here Aga Shahid Ali, if you're familiar with him, Kashmiri American poet, who has constantly questioned the status of Kashmir and Kashmiris in his work. Of course, he's not alive anymore. Das has constantly questioned the way women are perceived for their desire, and to naturalize a woman's desire and her existence as her sexual existence, of course, and sensual existence. So these are I just wanted to sort of give you a kind of idea of these poets, and they are more than the private intellectual. So there is now we are drifting a little bit into the zone of literature, and I'm just going to kind of familiarize with you these little debates or discussions, which I hope will be helpful for you in some way or the other. And because writing poetry or writing as such, okay, especially creative writing, is often seen as a highly private and a guarded practice, right? So here there is no of course concept as private intellectual, because the moment you write and the moment it goes out for publication, it is out there for consumption, right? So when you publish a work, can you really say that no, I wrote it only for myself, and I don't want to respond to that? You've let it go. Now it has a life of its own. So it's not it's so being private the practice of writing can be private. And if you really want to be a private intellectual, then it's hard to be present your work in the public sphere. But the difference to the point is, yes,
ma'am, your camera got turned off again.
Is it? It's just happening automatically. I don't know why. Thank you for the reminder.
No problem.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah. But the point here is that now we have seen, I have given you the understanding of the intellectual through the eyes of Emerson, Edward Said, Thapar. Now we're going to go to a bit of a different understanding of intellect, the poet as an intellectual. And if you see what poets do and how they do our things in a different way, poetry is not out there. It's not in your face. Poetry is the art of subtlety, the art of language, playing with language. Okay. If you just go to the previous slide, Thank you. Yes. So when poets are writing poetry, and how it is different, because when you're writing a novel, When you're writing a story, a novel, you can write 500 pages, right? Story, 50 pages. But you can't write that much in poetry. You can write 5 lines, 5 alphabets also if you want, that could be. A maximum, it can be 50 lines. I mean, people won't have patience, but 15 lines, right? So what happens is that when you're writing a novel, you're standing in front of the window and you're looking out into the world. And whatever you see, whatever you think, you're able to put it in pages, page after page after page, right? In poetry, you're standing in front of the window, but the window is looking inside you. Okay? So you can write about yourself. And even if you write about yourself, that can be equally a hallmark of preservation, of question, of dissent, of your own way of seeing activism, your own way of doing what intellectuals do. Poetry as a genre, it gives you that space. And of course, as readers, we also have to allow that space. You know, these are because I write, so I know how the wider audience, you know, perceive poetry or poets. I often get asked questions. So, what do you actually do? So, you must be having a job, which I have. I said, yeah, I have, because you know I need to pay my bills. But if I didn't have, my job would be a job of a poet. So it's not even accepted as an actual job right now, that writing could be the thing that this person does. Or they must be saying, so you must be writing only when you get inspired. What is your inspiration? Oh, is it a hobby? It's a very nice hobby. Is it a passion? So we're still living in that world, you know. Oh, I'm sure when you see the starry night, you must be inspired and you start writing poetry. I'm like, no, that's not the truth. When I see garbage littered out of my house, even I get inspired and I can write poetry. Okay. When I see something going wrong in society, I'm inspired to write, or not inspired. I'm provoked. You know, I'm forced to write at that point of time. So this is the, you know, kind of in popular imagination. Of course, it is seen as an art form, which is which still hasn't come to be accepted as a full-time profession, right? Why it has not been is possibly because poetry focuses on these few points that I have told you, right? It's focuses on creativity and aesthetics, because there's an art and craft to it, right? It's the beauty of language, mixing thought and emotion, right? Being innovative with the structure, with the patterns of poetry, and blending your own private and public space, right? Question and ponder. You can't just keep questioning, you have to ponder. So it's a small piece of work, but then you have to kind of, you know, spice it up with so many things. And that can also be an intellectually stirring piece as any other piece which is not poetry, which is prose as well. All right. And then therefore I see that when we talk about dialogue, poets should be taken into consideration. Poets should also be their opinions, their worldview, their presence in meetings is very, very essential. It's not just the policy makers, or it's not just politicians or academics or you know, researchers or scholars, so called in the scholarly term. We have to kind of widen, and we have to reach out to this knowledge, you know, this huge body of knowledge that poets carry. And I'm not just talking about poets who write in English, metropolitans, poets based in metropolitan cities with access to literary festivals and all the glamour. I'm talking about poets who are who live in, you know, the remotest parts of our country, who are writing in regional languages, who are getting their works translated, right? That knowledge is isolated when it comes to, you know, creating dialogue and fruitful communication between cultures or societies or problems that we collectively face as a society. We have to bring in this whole gamut of knowledge into our fold of what we formally understand as knowledge. Because if you see, academic research is publicly funded but privately distributed, and creative writing is privately funded but publicly distributed. Right. So to a greater extent, when this work is so public out there, they have to be included. I'll just move on to the next part of my talk. If you have any questions, any comments, observations, anything at all, please feel free. Don't save it like, oh, last, at the end, I'll ask, So we don't have a rigid structure here. Anything you would like to just make a comment, I mean, I'd be happy to take in from you. Yes. Anybody? We have 14 participants here. Okay, if we don't have, we'll proceed then. We'll proceed. Yes. So now, as I was requested before, and I thought that, I would be, yeah, could you just forward the slide? Right. Yes. So now I thought it's time that I kind of accelerate our talk today, and I'll go directly to the, fifth gear, and I would like to introduce you to my works. Because talking about someone else's work is, we've already done that. And through my poetry, if you feel that this is the poetry of a public intellectual, and this poetry can be taken forward towards to understand society, or in discussions, in discussions that are beyond the literary parameters, then I'd be happy. I'd be happy to know that. So whatever I'll read for you or present before you is what I look forward from you is that your opinion, on these works as representation of a public intellectual. If you think that can you actually take these, structured knowledge systems into dialogue studies further or in other spaces? Okay, we lost the video again. Yeah. So sorry for this. It's just happening. It's out of my control. So my phone has a mind of its own. I don't know. It's just playing mind games with me. So please just, yeah. And it's okay. I think my voice is audible. So, I mean, it's of course good to see the person always. But yeah, I think, am I good now? Yeah. Am I good now?
Yes, we can
Okay,
see you.
great. So I will be reading out a few of my works from my latest book, Noise Cancellation. It's by Hawkal Publishers, an independent publishing house. And this book has poems on sustainable consciousness. That is how you can practice the habit of focusing on the immediate reality rather than constant digital alerts or our parallel digital lives. And each of the poem, each of the poems they try to cancel a certain kind of noise. It could be the noise of capitalism, noise of emotional disturbance, noise of environmental damage, and that's how the collection has come to be. I think, do I have a short video on the reviews or anything? Yeah. Yeah, this is about the book. If you can you just go back? About the book. Yeah. Right. So here it is. The collection was conceived in 2019. And, when I felt like there was a lot of noise in my life and I needed to focus and kind of just live the bare minimum, right? And I was just speaking to my brother that I need a pair of headsets. What should I get? And he suggested that why don't you get the ones with the noise cancellation feature? And that became a metaphor for me, like a spiritual metaphor, a moment of epiphany. And I had thought like, yeah, noise cancellation. I mean, that's what I want. That's what I need. All right. And then I decided that I was working on the book already. And I said like, yeah, this is what the book is going to be. It's going to be about noise cancellation because there are so many. If we could just bring down all our thoughts into what we really need to think, we can think better as a society. If we can do that, if we can reduce, and I'm happy the book has done well. If you are interested, you can order a copy online. It's available at Amazon. And if you want further any information on this book, you can contact me or email me. I could send you that as well. Okay, and it's just about cherishing the small details of life. But at the same time, I also feel that it doesn't exist in a space of emotional isolation. That it's not just if I've written about what I thought, that it's that I can resonate with it. It exists in a highly public space with whatever I have addressed here. So I'll just kind of, have a short video about, if you want to, just the reviews of this book, just to kind of, bring a bit of variation in this talk. Just if you could show this short video that I have. I think people are falling asleep. They're like, no, this is not what we signed up for. Okay, we can just go, yes. So the first poem that I'll be reading for you, I know, if you're not familiar with poetry, it might seem a little intimidating. And people often think, what do I understand of poetry? I mean, what is poetry? So, but even if you feel like that, it's okay. Try and listen. Listening is the first step of dialogue. We have to listen to each other. Try and listen. Something resonates with you, make a point, and we can take it up later. Take it up as a challenge. If you do not like poetry, right? Take it up as a challenge and let me know what you think about it. So it's just an exercise for you to think about familiar things in an unfamiliar way. So here's my first poem. I ran the marathon without shoes, which talks about the agony of online teaching during the pandemic. How many of you were like in online classes or anything? How many of you were there? Yeah, great. You can put it in chat box. How was your experience? We can put it in one word, each one of you. You can put it in one word, your experience. Your experience of online, challenging. Very good. Yes, it was challenging. Yes. Thank you, Mona Lisa. Yes. Others? Others, yes, please. Please come forward. How was your experience? As a student, as a teacher? As a student, it was nice, isn't it? Ma'am, I lost connection. So there it is. Or else both, okay. Yes, others? Anything at all? Yes. Challenging? No? Okay. Okay, so we have only one answer. We have only one answer. So, all right, let's see. For me, it was, of course, challenging. As I said, it was running the marathon without shoes. And let's see. I'll start the reading. I filled their fluid eyes, a teacher fixed to a screen. Teens pandemically broke into 20s, whispered into the clear text of undergrad evenings how knowledge did not turn handward. Learning happened inside apps and logins. Songs of the syllabus shadowed our routines. I ran the marathon without shoes, wrestled with a slumbering machine, surrendered words to weary webinars. Don't talk of the webinars, 100 webinars in a day, isn't it? Twice quarantined between the hollow of walls, the expanse of electric air, I became the sum of pixels and spreadsheets. But this is a claim without the joy of a blackboard, the gentle watch over the ones doodling a poet or secretly messaging a lover in class. Oh, this compulsion, this creation without a heart warm and beating. I print the sky with grades of girls who wait at the mouth of sunken rivers. They are traceless, yet I mark them past, hoping them to return, to hear me below Shelley's west wind on a still Indian summer. I try the same on ether, offer warm wings of spring. They make it even with a frog emoticon transfixed under rain-beaten mushrooms. Thank you. So now if you have any questions on, the role of a public intellectual and a poem like this. So this is what poetry would do. A poet would do, keep it, write it with beauty, aesthetics, and being subtle. But there is knowledge happening here, right? Of course, I'm not going to explain this. That would be me, poet, murdering the poem itself. So I'm not going to do that. I would love to hear from you. Maybe if you don't want to respond now, you can respond later on. Sometimes it was lonely in a class. Yes, of course. Without human touch, what are we? We're nothing, right? When you're offline, you're somebody. You're somebody out there. But when you're online, your existence is in question. I used to have existential crisis, I do. Am I like really living, or like, is it my digital avatar that is living the life? Yeah. So yes, Mona Lisa says something beautiful. Metaphors are powerful. Thank you, Mona Lisa. Rain and mushrooms. Yes. If you actually think of that, it's a powerful metaphor. I'm not going to explain, but yeah, I'm very tempted to, because I'm also a literary critic. So, I'm tempted to critique my own poetry, but I won't do. But you just hit the nail on the head, the rain and the mushroom part. I would love to hear more about it. If you can make some notes and you can tell me later, it would be wonderful. The next poem that I'll be reading for you is Final Feathers. Any one of you are familiar with or you've heard of the great Indian bustard, the bird? The great Indian bustard, yes. If you know, they're on the verge of extinction, right? And I read quite a powerful article by Barkha Dutt's sister, Bahar Dutt's article in the Hindu, describing how these birds, these very ancient and majestic birds, were dying because they were colliding with the wings of the windmill, and in the desert areas and in Gujarat and there was research. Of course, there are incubation centers and which are trying to kind of revive them to life, or they're artificially trying to produce them. But then when I read the description, I mean, of this, the how she describes these birds would hit against the these the wings of these windmills, the arms of these windmill, and then just lie on the ground all scattered in pieces. That vision was very disturbing. And so here's a poem on kind of canceling the environmental noise, and it's on the great Indian bustard. It's called Final Feathers. Are you all with me, or am I alone here? If you're with me, just yes, Mona Lisa is with me. Yes. Uh, Others, you can just chat. Yes, Akanksha is with me. All right, great, great. Okay. So just hold on, all right? Final feathers. Take from this earth, take from this earth her sweet meadows. When you transmute into cold Persephone, the night's ceaseless hum will not nurse the quiver of wings that have perished like bees without hives. You are the great Indian bustard, heirlooms of African twilight on ancient tawny feathers. Yet you cannot borrow grass from the sun. Rise, my bird, from your unburied soul. Giant windmills, burning wires, rent the sky asunder. Hungry men hang scarlet alarms to empty the burden of camel riders, counting your scatter into collisions. They foster warm passages for birdlings and cool brooders. Will they reclaim the spine of creation? Season after season, we map winged massacres along war lines. Revenant bird, summon the spectre of your beloved. For tonight, darkness is home. The clouds are thick with indifference, and it pours and pours on your fatal wound. Thank you. If this did this resonate? Anything at all? Any comment? Any observation? Anything at all? Yes. Cannot borrow grass from the sun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mona Lisa, for your comment. Anybody else? If not, I'll just move on. I see how many women are here. Quite a few women participants, I guess, right? Do you wear nail polish? How many of you do wear nail polish? Or you can just put it in the chat box. Yes. Do you wear nail polish? Yes. Nope. Okay. Mona Lisa says nope. Others? Nope. Okay. We have quite a few nope here. How many of you do? Nope. 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 Okay. So we're all like-minded people. We don't wear nail polish.
No, I do. I do wear.
Yes. 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 Please
But
tell me your name. Yes.
I'm wearing black.
Oh, black. Okay. Okay. That's
So
very
I wear
grunge. Very
nail
form.
paint.
Sorry. Yes.
I think so. But I don't wear nail paint to really paint my nails. It has a very different. I don't have any particular reason to wear to do with making myself look beautiful or my hands look beautiful. Maybe I just like colors, and I want a certain color on my appearance. And basically, it reflects my emotion. So right now, I think I'm a little morose, a little dark inside me. I want this to be visible somewhere, to be reminded of. So I wear nail paint accordingly. And that has nothing to do with any occasion. So I would rather go to a wedding without wearing nail paint, and on a very, very mundane day, I would be wearing colors.
That's a color therapy for you, I think.
Yeah, it's more like a color therapy for me. Not even therapy. Actually, I mean, if we add the word therapy, it becomes a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like to attach any kind of beauty connotation with colors on myself. That's how I look at it.
Okay, great.
Also
Thank
about your poems, yeah, I just couldn't immediately
Please go ahead.
in a pensive mood. Yeah, so the Great Indian Busters vision, I mean, the way you have, I think your narration is stronger than the words that you have used to express. So your I mean, your recitation has a lot of this, and maybe in a better platform where there are more poets coming in, I think you will go deeper into expressing the emotions that you had felt while writing the poem. Not as of now, because so there was more of like, let us read the poem together. But had we had also read certain poems of ours, then maybe your narration, I mean, the recitation would have been different. And the emotion that the bustard would be feeling, I mean, you probably assumed the role of the bird while writing it. So somewhere you were also part of that whole process. So even if it was about the bird, you were also seeing yourself in that whole expression, is what I felt of the poem.
Good. It's always good to get feedback, because because obviously I'm writing and I know what why I'm writing, but how you said it, that I am seeking myself, or I am seeking my representation as well. I haven't thought it that way, but it's wonderful to know that. And if you dig deeper, I don't know what else you'll actually find. And that's the beauty of poetry. It allows interpretation, right, in so many different ways. And whether you read it by yourself alone, or you read it aloud, of course reading aloud is always better, always better. Whether you read it to poets, but poets haven't given me this feedback, so I'm glad I read it for you, because I got this feedback.
Yeah, because I do poetry.
And, how nice.
So I was just I was just wondering, the previous poem, I felt a little disconnected, so I will not comment. I would like to read actually before commenting, honestly speaking.
Definitely, that's wonderful. We can take it forward later on as well. And I appreciate your observation and comments. And I look forward to, because I'll be reading of just a few more, and then we can proceed with our formal discussion and our talk. So I'll just proceed as of now with the poem Edible Stain. I have selected poems here which I feel could be taken up in the field as representations of work that question a certain standard point of view, which is what we are coming back to, the idea of what a role of an intellectual should be, or is, rather. I shouldn't say should be. I mean, what it is understood as, and to see it in that light. So Edible Stain, I mean, this poem has been discussed a lot actually by many, and it has been published and republished 4 or 5 times again and again in various platforms. And I have received, yes, of course, I've received criticism, and I've received a very strong response from many people regarding this. I'm curious to know what you think. Right or wrong, I do not know. even I don't know when I'm writing where I'll be ending, but you can give me a point of view about how you see women and the idea of beauty and the idea of living up to that notion of beauty and capitalism, how it's kind of it seeps into a woman's life, you know. That's how it is. I'll not analyze it. I'm tempted, but I'll not. Edible stain. I do not wear nail polish. These fingers that crown rusty hands smell like unpaid bills in the pockets of a forgetful husband. There's a midnight blue and a ravishing red for the young rebels, the tender, flawless ones, fresh from runways, swishing down glass staircases, or floating in the streets of glamorous cities. But name me a shade for thumbs that have ripened with time. What is the color of the burden of those who have skinny dipped in frothy waters? Is there a gel or a matte finished liquid that will survive the edge of kitchen knives, the steam rising from a pot of rice, the prick of a metal hair clip, or the bite of a wrong-sized bra? Even the nudes cannot survive the ordinary. Is there a polish that will hold my palms up to light, add meaning to the aching sentences of desire, unwritten by routine baths of dishes and drains? Dear artist, come down from your towers. Join the woman who eats fish bones with her fingers. Come, make her an edible stain, an amorphous luminous, unknown to the apologies of her salary and nails. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Reshmi writes, so I was thinking about the same as how much lip balm do we actually eat? Yeah, kilos of lip balm, or liters. I don't know what is the milliliter. How do they measure it? Yes. Any comments, any question on edible stain? Anything that was relatable or not relatable? Yes? Anything at all? Thumbs that have ripened with time. Yes. What do you think? Ripened, R-I-P-E-N-E-D. Thumbs that have ripened with time. Yes. Well, let me. Yes, please go ahead.
Basically, in fact, I have given a talk which was 10 fingers, and thumbs have a very definitive work. So it was very interesting how we used this term, thumbs that have ripened with time. So I would like to hear your interpretation of this particular metaphor.
But the word ripe is a very sensuous word, you know. So it can be interpreted in so many ways. Thumbs that have ripened with, it can be, of course, aging as you age naturally. As you mature, as you mature, the process, ripening, you see, it's actually a process that I'm referring to. So, like, neither have you reached where you want to go, nor are you happy where you are. And our thumbs are like they're like the nerve center of our existence. No, I mean, so this identity, everything we do is with the hand, with our thumbs. I mean, there's no existence without them. And we are constantly in the process of growing. So what colors can really represent this growth of a woman? I mean, that's what I thought. This whole process of this emotional, sexual, sensual, intellectual, cultural, there are so many things.
Beautiful, beautiful. I agree. In fact, I'm
Thank
going
you.
to put it.
Sorry, I was thrown out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. Yeah. Chilam, I was just thrown out. I'm
Hi.
sorry, I missed your point. Would you please kindly repeat?
So I was asked that, what do I mean, or what would I mean by the phrase that I've used, the thumbs that have ripened with time? Uh, am I audible to you?
You are audible. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. You're audible.
Thumbs that have ripened. So this, we were discussing about the use of the word ripening, you know. So ripening is a process. That's what we said, that it's something that's what you're not happy with who you are and you want to be someone else. And I'm not going to explain it. Actually, I don't like to talk about the explanation part. I leave it to readers. So what could ripening mean to you? I mean, I would love to hear from you. And that would be, my take. Readers, audiences, listeners' interpretation. Right.
All right.
Maybe I
Yeah.
can add something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yes. So when I heard this line, I was thinking about my mother. Like she manages the whole house and she does she washing dishes and washing clothes. So when I see her hands, so her fingers and thumbs, like it is actually ripening. So I thought about it when I heard that sentence. So this is how I interpreted
Yes.
it.
Good, 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 correct, good. Yes, anybody else? Yes.
Beautiful. First, I wanted to thank you. I think one of the major things I'm into emotional intelligence and transformation. And what we do is we always, as women, we always,
Mm.
that's why one of the reasons that I don't wear the main paint is uh, when we are cooking and doing work, it's just
Yes.
really, I mean, that's one of the basic reasons. If you don't have to do the dishes and the cooking and all that, and I have a butler, I would love to have painted nails with some art. But the beauty about how you shared it, which I really like, I don't know why people are against and they have negative feedback for this, is so beautiful. Um, it's every role that we shift is my interpretation. Every role that we shift in a day, in an hour, in a minute, the kind of transmutation, I use the word transmuted as well, the kind of transfer that happens between each role is so seamless. But yet we don't have a color to represent that seamlessness, that adaptability, that flexibility, that beauty of 10 hands and 10 hand power that we have, as a woman. So um, it really, gave me yes, I agree. You use so many, I'm actually getting excited because I love metaphors and I deliver a lot of work of mine has metaphors because with children, you have to do storytelling. And my daughter is a poet as well, and she writes on shadow self and, and the other side of human personality, the mask and all that. But the beauty about using it so nicely, um, I don't know. I'm really happy that you came and you're sharing your point. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so touched. And, I mean, these are great insights that we look forward to always. I mean, what can a small book of poems do? It cannot make you a millionaire. It cannot make you famous, but it can affect 2 people, 20 people, 200 people. It can create a ripple of change and awareness. And I'm so glad I could, make you think this way. And it was very fruitful listening to you as well. I really appreciate your response. Thank you so much. Yes. So Reshmi has something important. I was tempted to ask about fish bones. No, don't hold back, Reshmi. You're most free. And Varun Grover wears nail paint. Achha, the connotation is to break gender stereotype. Yeah, that could be a poem in itself. Men wearing, can I ask you, Reshmi, shall I take this up later on, Reshmi, Rupi Kaur's poetry? Um, mm, because it's a little like totally out of, not related to the poem right now. And I'm not familiar with her work, so I won't be able to comment. I've heard of her, but I'm not very familiar. So I just know the names of the books. So, okay, so we have a bit of time, and I'll just sort of, kind of talk about the next poem, that is called The Toil of the Toddy. Toddy wine, kari, as it is called in Bengali, or in different languages, it has different names. How many of you are familiar with the toddy tappers? Have you seen the toddy tappers? The toddy tappers of, in Goa, if you go, or in the entire southern states of Andhra and Telangana, that's where I've seen them. Anybody who's familiar with the toddy tappers? You only heard about it. Okay, Mona Lisa, yes. Others? Anyone? It's a tough life for them. They still, they climb. It's a clan of people. It's within a community. So if your father is a toddy tapper, your children become, and then it's carried on, as a knowledge, as a social, as a communal. As a knowledge of the family. And and I have seen them. Well, I have been traveling across Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and like how early morning they'll just climb up the tree and they'll collect the toddy, or in the evening, and there's no like sophisticated machine or anything. It's just they'll tie their hands and legs, feet with a rope, and they'll climb it. It's just a technique that they've learned through the generations. But then I saw beautiful, not beautiful, but a curious sight. These children of the toddy tappers, as the man was tapping the toddy, and he was trying to instruct them to watch him and learn. But they were also curious on something going on in phone. Okay. So they were watching some YouTube video and they were laughing, and they didn't care about what their dad, the toddy tapper, was doing at all. And that's sort of a kind of that sight, that experience of kind of sparked in me this poem, Toil of the Toddy. Earthen pitchers hang from palmyra trees like earrings of an antique Egyptian woman. Faithful men gather at her feet, stirring sea-lipped summers into her tubular sway. The tapper must lay hungry children to sleep. His shoulders carry heirlooms of generations who owned nothing but the tongue of palm leaves. Frothy desires recline in the pallid drowse of cool toddy wine. Dark, wet bodies extract the dew of dawn, and if city folks desire, they cut through the twilight to hold, drop by drop, the oozing warmth of a mellow song. The city does not care. Only the river knows the ache of trees that have cradled disappearing men into manhood. Only the palm groves shiver each time the young sons deny the rope, the climb, the pot of pleasure, and tap the air for the sweet wound of knowledge. Thank you. Sweet wound of knowledge. Yes, any comments, anything at all? Yes, anything at all? You can put in the chat box. Yes, thank you about Pragya. Thank you for putting information about Rupi Kaur. I'll look her up. If not, then I will just go to the last piece of my reading here. titles. I'll just skip one and I'll go to the windmill. Anyone here who is a teacher, who is working or who has worked as an academic in a college or a school? Anybody? Yes?
Yes,
Do we
I
have
do.
a few?
I do
Yes, yes,
teach.
you could speak. Yes, yes.
I don't know, like I'm being thrown out today. My internet is quite weak.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I do teach. I teach at a university level,
Wonderful. Which university, ma'am?
Mumbai University.
Wonderful. Great. Good to connect. Good to connect. Okay, so you
Same
do
here.
teach at the university level. Good. Anybody else? Or you taught? Okay, so this is this is a poem of anger and a poem of great anger against the academia, the present atmosphere in academia. But of course, as I said in the beginning, intellectuals dissent, poets question, poets show their anger, but poets are also, at the end of the day, our purpose is to create art, and art has to be disturbing and pleasurable. Art has to has its own purpose. So what I've done is I've used, a satire is best when you use a rhyme scheme, a very simple AB rhyme scheme, and I'm talking in a very humorous manner because when you convert your anger into humor, chances are that people will listen to you. Nobody wants to listen to an angry person shouting, but yeah, if you can crack a joke, you can, kind of communicate the same information. And who knows, maybe the joke will have more impact than angry words. So here is the poem, The Windmill. Are you familiar with the novel, The Animal Farm? Yeah, so I've taken the idea of the windmill from from that. It might seem very dark. It's like darkly comic, dark comedy, but here it goes. This is the upside down of Stranger Things. One more semester under Napoleon's wings. The almanac is simply for display. Holidays disappear whenever they say. We have novels, poems, and stories to teach, and miles of syllabus before we reach the sacred, ambiguous climb when emails flood our real timeline. We dare not offend the data monster. Like mules follow the changeless roster. And ahoy, we march towards the windmill with documents and back pain pills. Students know, and some join our plight. The rest skip classes, but demand attendance with delight. Aims and objectives are mathematically measured. In percentages, we claim our academic pleasures. They don't talk about our salaries, never ever the insurance for our maladies. Yet, we bleed for the grand vision when sheets will be filled with our revised mission. We know they don't mean any harm, not that anything here reminds us of Animal Farm. Late into the midnight, when I snack on crackers and cheese and gleefully polish the inbox with information grease, lo, I find the Demogorgon reappear in the body of an attachment that seems unfamiliar. Words murmur in caps, some slimy message perhaps. Boxer, you are awesome. You are great. Now please refill all the data in the new template. Thank you. that would be my time. If you're interested in grabbing a copy of Noise Cancellation, you can order on Amazon. And if you would like to stay in touch with me, you can connect me at Instagram, poetry.chef, or you could request your course instructor to to share my mail ID. I'd be happy to do that, and we could connect and take our work forward. Thank you, everyone. Your comments, observations, anything at all is most welcome. Yeah, Reshmi, thank you for the Stranger Things. Yeah. Well, it's upside down, I sometimes feel, academic world. Yes. Any observation? If you're a student as well, I mean, if you could resonate with this, please do share.
So if you have any questions or if you want to share any comments, reflections, so
any
feel free to do that
observations.
by raising your hands. Yes.
Zoya, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Jhilam, thank you for coming. Actually, this is one of my most favorite, intriguing. I enjoy poetry. I don't read much, but I do write, and I just gave you a follow on Instagram. Please do follow back. Okay, sorry, no, that's a watercolor page. So yeah, any which way. With regard to the last poem, I also want to read your block prints because academicians wear a lot of chanderi and block prints and khadi, and there is something about it. So I really want to know how you have interpreted block prints as a poet and an academician. I um, totally resonate with the last poem, the couplets, the rhythmic couplets that you have. I don't know, like maybe the rhythm sounded better than because unless otherwise that whole expression would have been so chaotic because it is so much of turmoil. You have to force your students to switch on their video. Yeah, exactly. And I was simply, I don't know if Pragya and Behzad would allow, but I would like to read a poem of mine, if that is permissible.
I think to me it's fine. I mean, so if
yes.
And as an intellectual, I give you the right to read the poem. Please go ahead.
I don't know which one to read, but I wrote a poem on birthday. And so it's in Hindi. My Hindi is terrible as recitation. भीड़ के बीच उठता धुआं, किवाड़ के बीच दबती आहट. भीड़ के बीच उठता धुआं, किवाड़ के बीच दबती आहट. दबे कदमों से दौड़ती सन्नाटा, तेज बजते गाने. दबे कदमों से दौड़ती सन्नाटा, तेज बजते गाने. उठता धुआं होठों के बीच, आंखों में बसे दोस्ती की दलील. कंधे पर दिखती वो तुम्हारा तिल, नग्न आत्मा रंगीन कपड़े, बेशुमार सैकड़ों तालियां. नग्न आत्मा रंगीन कपड़े, बेशुमार सैकड़ों तालियां. हंसी की ठहाकों से अजीब सी बेचैनी. हंसी की ठहाकों से अजीब सी बेचैनी. पीने की चाहत और गमगीन. अनगिनत नजरें और कोने में मैं. मेरे आगे तेजी से भागती हुई दुनिया. मेरे आगे तेजी से भागती हुई दुनिया. धुआं से राख बनते देख रही, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता एक जन्मदिन. Thank you.
बहुत ही खूबसूरत है. Such lovely images you have juxtaposed together like a movie. It is unfolding in front of me. एक movie की तरह चल रहा है. Thank you. Yes. Anybody else? Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's always nice to be rewarded with another poem as well. It's a small reward for me.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for this team as well to bring to you, because you are, I think, our first female speaker. So I really do enjoy this session. And I also love to read and the poetry. And just one thing, not into yours, but the poetry sometimes it just came out itself. Like if we are not a professional writer, like I'm not a professional writer or writing a poetry, but it just came when you are in that situation. And being as an intellectual through poetry, it's not just to be well known in the field of that, but it makes sense to, at least to you, if you contribute something from your side, if you are not well known, but at least to your family, to your friends, you can bring a small change through that. So I really do enjoy your poetry as well in the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pragya, right? Is it no, Akanksha? That's a very good observation that, we can't be, we can't just stand and watch. So many things happen, right? I mean, at least I can write and express about it rather than being, kind of absolutely nonchalant. Yes, anybody else? Anything at all? We have a few observations in the chat box. Yes, thank you for your lovely comments, deep thoughts, or well-weaved poetry of living and life. Yes. 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 Anything? I haven't heard anything from someone else as well. If you would like to, any other question
You can also
regarding
share
writing?
your reflections if you want.
Yes. Sorry.
I'm just saying to the participants, like,
Okay,
if you
yes.
want to share your reflections or if you want to engage in dialogue with the speaker, you can do that as well. So it's not just limited to the questions.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So I hope, just to sum up, my whole idea was to understand the role of poets as intellectuals and contribution of poetry to the field of questioning, dissent, preservation of intellectual existence, right? So we have all that. And as I said, political thoughts, how do we understand the role of poets and poetry specifically in creating and contributing effective dialogue in dialogue studies, right? Apart from policymakers, academics, and researchers. So it's just a humble effort to see if how we can bring in literature and especially poets into the fold of understanding dialogue, because there's so much that poets have to say. As I said, poets writing in English or any other language. We have students joining from Iraq, from different countries. So you can imagine the huge amount of knowledge that we have, and imagine if we could tap this knowledge and we could bring it together, right? Poets writing in very Adivasi languages, Santali languages, languages that are in danger. And sometimes I wonder, the tribes of Andaman Islands, the Jarbas, do they write poetry? They're inaccessible, right? Of Andaman Nicobar Islands. I mean, do they write? And if we could know that, of course, without disturbing them, what would we know? I think we would know. No, I do not know the language. I do not know the language. That's what I'm saying. We are so isolated in our metropolitan English worlds, that we do not know so much. It's a bad thing. We should know. I should know, but I don't know. Right. We should be in awareness of each other. So, and that can happen when we come together. So yes, thank you for a few more comments that we have here. Yes, seems like only female leads only. Okay. Can some write the Instagram ID? Okay, am I allowed to write here my Instagram ID?
Ma'am, if you want to, you can.
Okay, I mean it's there everywhere, so it's fine.
Comfortable.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah. Okay, if anything else is there, we can continue else.
Can I say something quickly?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I think like so well Kansha mentioned that it's women empowered, I guess. But I wanted to add something. We are very sensitive to things happening around us. That is how the poems reflect. And what I believe both of you have done is so beautifully is reflect in a very creative way the mirroring that people need to rivet their attention to. It's like a mirror. And poetry is something which is very dear to me as well, because it's a play of words, and it's full of metaphors that, invites you, like you said, out
Right.
a different kind of interpretation to it. And it gives you the freedom to imagine and be your own self and see yourself. So thank you so much. And Reshma, we would love to hear more of your poems in the group. And in fact, all of you, if you write, even if it's a two-liner, I'm like a two-liner
Yes.
poet. But even if it's a two-liner, do share it. It's so nice to actually know all of you a little more. And through India, the dialogue studies, I'm actually getting the kind of onion friendship from all of you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you. That was such a wonderful way of putting it together, because we always think, writing is something that happens in isolation, or it's something separate. But if we really indulge ourselves in discussion and we, kind of take it up, it can open several doors for all of us as such in different ways. This experience matters. So it will open up several experiences. And today was a fantastic experience.
So I think we don't have any more questions, so we can conclude the session now. Thank you so much, Ms. Jhilam ma'am, for delivering this wonderful lesson today. And thank you very much to all our participants for your patience and cooperation. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening. Take care.